Good morning, children. Today we are going to read the chapter The Rat Trap. It is written by Selma Lagerlof, and in this chapter, she talks about a character. His name is not given, but he is addressed as the peddler everywhere in the chapter. So, this peddler he had this habit of a little thievery. So he was a bit of a negative person in the beginning, and the writer shows that how, when he receives love and affection of somebody, then how he changes himself. So, this is what we are going to read in the chapter. The main idea of the chapter is that no person is born bad. It is the circumstances that makes a person bad, and when good circumstances arrive, then the person again changes to goodness. So let's read the chapter. Once upon a time, there was a man who went around selling small rat traps of wire. He made them himself at odd moments from the material he got by begging in the stores or at the big farms. But even so, the business was not especially profitable, so he had to resort to both begging and petty thievery to keep body and soul together. Even so, his clothes were in rags, his cheeks were sunken, and hunger gleamed in his eyes. So, this is a story about a peddler who used to move around selling small rat traps of wire. He used to make these rat traps by begging in the stores and big farms for the material that is required to make the rat traps. But this business of selling rat traps as a wanderer, as a vendor, was not profitable. So he had to resort to both begging and petty thievery. So he was not a big robber, but little bit of thievery he would do, and he would even beg to keep body and soul together. To keep body and soul together is an idiom, it means to survive. So for survival, he would not mind begging and stealing. So, in the first paragraph, we come to know that the rat trap, the peddler used to sell rat traps, then he used to beg and he used to steal. But still, he used to live in a very miserable, pitiable condition. His clothes were all in rags, his cheeks were sunken, and hunger gleamed in his eyes. So he was not able to live a comfortable life by resorting to these three means. No one can imagine how sad and monotonous life can appear to such a vagabond who plods along the road, left to his own meditations. But one day this man had fallen into a line of thought which really seemed to him entertaining. He had naturally been thinking of his rat traps when suddenly he was struck by the idea that the whole world with its lands and seas, its cities and villages, was nothing but a big rat trap. It had never existed for any other purpose than to set baits for people. It offered riches and joys, shelter and food, heat and clothing, exactly as the rat trap offered cheese and pork, and as soon as anyone let himself be tempted to touch the bait, it closed in on him, and then everything came to an end. So, here he talks about the philosophy of the peddler. So, the peddler, also referred in the second line of this paragraph as vagabond, he had a very sad and boring life. Monotonous means single tone, having single tone. That is very boring. So he had a very sad and monotonous life, and he had no family, no house, nowhere to go to. So his life was really pitiable. So one day when he was thinking about his rat traps, then suddenly one idea comes to his mind. And this idea was about the world about him. So he was able to establish a relationship, a comparison between the rat traps and the world. So he felt that this world offers us riches and joys, shelter, food, clothing, comforts. So, this world with the things that it has to offer is similar to a rat trap. A rat trap also has cheese bits, some food items as bait. So these baits tempt the rat, and the rat is attracted towards the bait and enters into the rat trap and gets caught there. So, in the same manner, we human beings also are attracted towards the riches, the comforts offered by this world, and we also start circling around this bait, and we also fall into the rat trap of this materialistic world. And once we enter into this materialistic world, there is no exit. So a comparison is made by the peddler between the rat trap and this world. So this is an important question, children. So the question would come, what was the philosophy of the peddler? So this philosophy you have to write there. Now let's move on. The world had, of course, never been very kind to him. So it gave him unwanted joy to think ill of it in this way. It became a cherished pastime of his during many dreary ploddings to think of people he knew who had let themselves be caught in the dangerous snare, and of others who were still circling around the bait. In this paragraph, look at the word unwanted. In the second line you will find this unwanted joy. So this is not some spelling mistake, this is another word. It is not unwanted, it is unwanted, and it means unaccustomed, unaccustomed joy. So he never had the experience of this kind of joy, but once he started applying his philosophy of rat trap on people around him, he started enjoying himself. So he started looking at the people around, how they were running here and there, how they were busy all the time, how much hard work they were putting in. So he felt that all those people were actually in a rat trap, in the rat trap of this materialistic world. And he used to feel that he himself was out of this rat trap. So he used to feel himself to be superior to these people. He used to feel that these people are not leading a good life. They are in a rat trap. And he was living a free life, a life of freedom. So he would love to think of people he knew who had let themselves be caught in the dangerous snare. Snare is trap. So again, dangerous snare means this world as a rat trap with the various things it has to offer. So he used to think on that line, and he used to feel very good. He used to enjoy himself like that after discovering his philosophy of world. One dark evening, as he was trudging along the road, he caught sight of a little grey cottage by the roadside, and he knocked on the door to ask shelter for the night. Nor was he refused. Instead of the sore faces which ordinarily met him, the owner, who was an old man without wife or child, was happy to get someone to talk to in his loneliness. Immediately he put the porridge pot on the fire and gave him supper. Then he carved off such a big slice from his tobacco roll that it was enough both for the stranger's pipe and his own. Finally, he got out an old pack of cards and played meaulus with his guest until bedtime. So, this peddler, he did not have a house of his own. So either he used to ask for shelter in somebody's house at night, or he used to sleep on the pavement by the roadside. So one dark evening he just tried his luck. He knocked the door of a little grey cottage, and usually sore faces would meet him. People would not be happy when he would knock their door and would ask for shelter. But that particular day he did not face a sore face. The owner of that cottage was an old man and he had no family. Without wife or child, he was a lonely person. And he was happy to receive a person so that he could talk to him. So he was happy to receive him, and he was a very good host. At once he started preparing porridge for him. Then he gave him a tobacco roll also, and he also played an old game of cards called Meolis. He took out an old pack of cards and played the game Meolis with his guest. So, all in all, he was a very good host and he treated the peddler very well. The old man was just as generous with his confidences as with his porridge and tobacco. The guest was informed at once that in his days of prosperity, his host had been a crofter at Ramjo's iron works and had worked on the land. Now that he was no longer able to do day labor, it was his cow which supported him. Yes, that Bossy was extraordinary. She could give milk for the creamery every day, and last month he had received all of 30 kroner in payment. So this old man, he was uh, as generous with his confidences. Confidences mean secrets, as he was with his porridge and supper and tobacco. No, not only he gave the peddler porridge and tobacco, he also shared his secrets with him. He told him that earlier he used to work at Ramjo Iron Works as a crofter. Crofter is a person who tills the land but is not the owner of the land. It's like being a sharecropper. So earlier he used to be a crofter, but now as he had grown old, he could not do that much laborious task. So now there was a cow which supported him. And that cow was extraordinary, and it gave a lot of milk. And he was able to earn 30 kroner rupees. Sorry, kroner is a Swedish currency. Like we have rupees, they have kroner. So he had been able to save 30 kroners. The stranger must have seemed incredulous, for the old man got up and went to the window, took down a leather pouch which hung on a nail in the very window frame, and picked out three wrinkled 10 kroner bills. These he held up before the eyes of his guest, nodding knowingly, and then stuffed them back into the pouch. So, what did this stranger do? This host, this owner of the cottage, he went to the window, and by the window frame there was hanging a pouch. He took that pouch, and inside that pouch there were the three notes, 10 kroner bills, and he took them out and showed to the peddler, and again put them inside the pouch, and hung that pouch by the nail on the window frame. So this was too much of a temptation for the peddler. So from this much discussion, we should be able to answer the question that do you think that the crofter was a good host? So you can say yes, the crofter was a good host. He provided the peddler with porridge. He gave him tobacco. He played the game Meolis with him. He kept him entertained. So all in all, he was a good host. So now let's see, will the peddler be able to return the goodness shown by the crofter or not? The next day, both men got up in good season. The crofter was in a hurry to milk his cow, and the other man probably thought he should not stay in bed when the head of the house had gotten up. They left the cottage at the same time. The crofter locked the door and put the key in his pocket. The man with the rat trap said goodbye and thank you, and thereupon each went his own way. But half an hour later, the rat trap peddler stood again before the door. He did not try to get in, however. He only went up to the window, smashed a pane stuck in his hand, and got hold of the pouch with the 30 kroner. He took the money and thrust it into his own pocket. Then he hung the leather pouch very carefully back in its place and went away. So the next morning, the crofter got up early in the morning as he was in a hurry to milk the cow, and the peddler also got up by the same time, and they both left the cottage. And the crofter went in one direction and the peddler went in the other direction. But half an hour later, the peddler returned to that very door, to that very cottage, and he did not try to enter into the cottage. He just broke the window pane of the window of that cottage, and he just thrusted his hand inside, and he took out the pouch, and from the pouch he took out the money, and then he hung that pouch, empty pouch, back in its place, and he went away. So here we see that the peddler was tempted when the host showed him money. So, as the peddler was a little bit of a thief, so this is what was expected of him. So, he stole the money. As he walked along with the money in his pocket, he felt quite pleased with his smartness. He realized, of course, that at first he dared not continue on the public highway, but must turn off the road into the woods. During the first hours, this caused him no difficulty. Later in the day, it became worse, for it was a big and confusing forest which he had gotten into. He tried to be sure to walk in a definite direction, but the paths twisted back and forth so strangely. He walked and walked without coming to the end of the wood, and finally he realized that he had only been walking around in the same part of the forest. All at once he recalled his thoughts about the world and the rat trap. Now his own turn had come. He had let himself be fooled by a bait and had been caught. The whole forest, with its trunks and branches, its thickets and fallen logs, closed in upon him like an impenetrable prison from which he could never escape. So initially, he was very happy after stealing the money, that he acted in a very smart manner. And then he realized that he should not move on the public highway, on the main road. He would be caught by the police. So he entered into a forest. He thought of crossing the forest and to reach to its other side, and he would be safe. So, during the first hours, this caused him no difficulty. But in the later part of the day, when he was not able to come out of the forest, he began to panic. He tried to follow one direction and move in a definite path, but he was not able to do so. And he realized that he had been walking in the same area. The paths there were moving back and forth strangely, and he was coming back to the same point from where he was trying to move forward. So then he realized his philosophy about the world and the rat trap, and he understood that his own turn had come. He was tempted by the bait. The bait was the 30 kroners, and he was tempted by it, and now he was sitting in that forest. That forest was like a big rat trap. It was an impenetrable prison, and he felt that he would not be able to come out of this forest, and he would die over there. Now he started repenting that he should not have fallen for the money. It was late in December. Darkness was already descending over the forest. This increased the danger and increased also his gloom and despair. Finally, he saw no way out, and he sank down on the ground, tired to death, thinking that his last moment had come. But just as he laid his head on the ground, he heard a sound, a hard, regular thumping. There was no doubt as to what that was. He raised himself. Those are the hammer strokes from an iron mill, he thought. There must be people nearby. He summoned all his strength, got up, and staggered in the direction of the sound. So it was late in December. Darkness was already descending over the forest. So in winter season, the days are shorter and the nights are longer. So it was already darkness over there, and this increased the danger to his life, and he became very gloomy, very sad, and despair. Despair means he was losing hope, and he was not able to find any way out, so he just sank down to the ground, and he was thinking that his last time had come. But when he laid his head on the ground, he was able to hear one continuous thumping sound. So he was able to make out that there should be some iron mill nearby from where these hammer strokes could be heard. So he gathered all his strength and he staggered. Staggered means to move unsteadily. So he started moving in the direction of the sound. The Ramjo ironworks, which are now closed down, were not so long ago a large plant with smelter, rolling mill, and forge. In the summertime, long lines of heavily loaded barges and scows slid down the canal, which led to a large inland lake, and in the winter time, the roads near the mill were black from all the coal dust which sifted down from the big charcoal crates. Yeah, so the writer now talks about the Ramjo Ironworks. That earlier Ramjo Ironworks was a big plant, it was a large plant, and it had three different sections. One was the smelter, one was the rolling mill, and the other was forge. Smelter is that place where they used to melt the iron. Rolling mill means to flatten iron sheets, and forge is the furnace. So earlier it used to be a large plant with three different sections, but presently it wasn't that big. It just had one part left, that was the forge. In the summertime, earlier in the summertime, the canal route was used to take loads of iron sheets out into the market with the help of barges and scows. Barges and scows are the boats. But in the winter time, as the canal used to get frozen, so the road route was used, and the roads used around the mill used to be black with the coal dust that used to shift down from the big charcoal crates. So during the summertime, they used to use the canal for bringing the coal inside and taking out the finished product, that is the iron sheets. And during the winter time, the same was done through the road route. So now the writer comes back to that particular day. During one of the long dark evenings just before Christmas, the master smith and his helper sat in the dark forge near the furnace waiting for the pig iron which had been put in the fire to be ready to put on the anvil. Every now and then one of them got up to stir the glowing mass with a long iron bar, returning in a few moments dripping with perspiration, though as was the custom, he wore nothing but a long shirt and a pair of wooden shoes. So, that particular day, on the eve of Christmas, there were only two workers working in that Ramjo Ironworks plant, and one has been referred to as the master smith. Master smith means the expert blacksmith, and the other one was his helper, an apprentice, you can say. They were sitting in the dark forge near the furnace, and they were waiting for the pig iron to be ready to put on the anvil. Anvil is the big iron block on which the blacksmith keeps the things that he wants to give shape to with his hammer. So, anvil, you can say, is the platform on which a blacksmith works. So they had kept a big piece of iron into the furnace, and they were waiting that it comes to that temperature when they can flatten it easily with their with their hammer strokes. So every now and then they were going near to that furnace, and with the help of a long iron bar, they were moving that big iron piece a bit this side that side to see whether it was ready to be beaten, and then would come back, and in moments only they would be dripping with perspiration. Though outside it was very chilly, December month was going on, and still it was so hot near the furnace that they were returning dripping with perspiration. And they were not wearing a lot of woolen, but it was only because of the furnace that they were perspiring so badly. They were just wearing a long shirt and wooden shoes. So, all the time there were many sounds to be heard in the forge. The big bellows groaned and the burning coal cracked. The fire boy shoveled charcoal into the maw of the furnace with a great deal of clatter. Outside roared the waterfall, and a sharp north wind whipped the rain against the brick tiled roof. It was probably on account of all this noise that the blacksmith did not notice that a man had opened the gate and entered the forge until he stood close up to the furnace. So, this was the place towards which the peddler was coming to. He was able to hear the sound of the hammer from this place. So he was moving towards this place, and inside, those two men were sitting, the master smith and the helper, and they were waiting for the iron to be to reach to that temperature on which it can be beaten into sheets. And there was a lot of sound produced in and around this forge. So inside, the sounds were that of the big bellows groaned. Bellows are the long pipes through which that is used to blow air into the furnace. And that was one sound. Another was the burning coal cracked. So the crackling sound of the burning coal. That was another sound. And the fire boy, the helper, he was thrusting charcoal into the moist mouth, into the mouth of the furnace with a great deal of clatter. He was also making a lot of sound, and outside there was a waterfall, and then there was the sharp north wind blowing. So all this was producing a lot of sound, and it was raining outside, and this sharp north wind was beating the rain against the brick tiled roof of the forge. So there uh, were several sources of sound inside as well as outside the forge. So because of these noise, the blacksmith, the helper, they were not able to notice that the peddler had already entered into the forge, opening the gate. So he was just standing beside the furnace when they noticed that somebody had entered into the forge. Surely it was nothing unusual for poor vagabonds without any better shelter for the night to be attracted to the forge by the glow of light which escaped through the sooty panes, and to come in to warm themselves in front of the fire. The blacksmiths glanced only casually and indifferently at the intruder. He looked the way people of his type usually did, with a long beard, dirty, ragged, and with a bunch of rat traps dangling on his chest. He asked permission to stay, and the master blacksmith nodded a hearty consent without honoring him with a single word. The tramp did not say anything either. He had not come there to talk, but only to warm himself and sleep. So the blacksmith and his apprentice, they were not amazed, they were not shocked to see this vagabond reaching near to the furnace, because they had earlier also seen such visitors of that appearance coming over there. So poor vagabonds who had no better shelter to spend the night at, with long beard, dirty, ragged clothes, usually visited this forge. So they were not very much surprised to see the peddler there. And the peddler asked for permission to stay there, and the blacksmith just nodded his head. Okay, you can do that. He didn't say a single word, but with his gesture of nodding his head, he made it clear to the peddler that he was allowed to do so. And the tramp did not mind this thing, that he did not particularly say it that he was allowed to stay there, because he had not come there to talk to the blacksmith, and he was not expecting any kindness from the blacksmith. He had just come there to warm himself and sleep there, and he was allowed to do that, so he was okay with it. Words or no words, doesn't matter to such poor people. So the story so far is that the peddler spent a night at a crofter's cottage, and the next morning he stole 30 kroners from his cottage, and then he took a path through the forest, but he got lost in the forest, and he felt that he would die, but then he heard the sound of hammer striking over somewhere. Following the sound, he reached to a forge of the Ramjo Iron Works, erstwhile Ramjo Iron Works, and here he was allowed to stay for the night near the furnace to warm himself by the blacksmith working over there. So this is the story so far. I hope the things are clear. Now let's move on. In those days, the Ramjo iron mill was owned by a very prominent iron master whose greatest ambition was to ship out good iron to the market. He watched both night and day to see that the work was done as well as possible, and at this very moment he came into the forge on one of his nightly rounds of inspection. Naturally, the first thing he saw was the tall ragamuffin who had eased his way so close to the furnace that steam rose from his wet rags. The iron master did not follow the example of the blacksmiths, who had hardly deigned to look at the stranger. He walked close up to him, looked him over very carefully, then tore off his slouch hat to get a better view of his face. So in those days, the Ramjo iron mill, it was owned by an iron master. See, in this chapter we are not getting names for the different characters, so they are called by their professions. So we have the person selling rat traps called the peddler, then the crofter, the owner of the cottage, then the expert smith, blacksmith, and now the owner of Ramjo iron mill is iron master. So no name is used anywhere in the chapter except one that we will read, and that name is of iron master's daughter. Her name is Edla Wilmenson. We'll read that quite soon. So this iron master, he wanted to bring back the golden days of Ramjo iron mill, and he was working very hard for it. And during the daytime he would visit this forge, this iron mill, to inspect how the work was going on, and at night also he would come to inspect. So he came for his nightly inspection and he saw this peddler lying over there. So the first thing that he noticed entering into the forge was this tall ragamuffin. Ragamuffin means a person who wears dirty rags, tattered clothes. So his eyes at once went to this unusual sight of this tall ragamuffin, and he had this ragamuffin. This peddler had gone so near to the furnace that steam was rising up from his wet rags. The iron master, he went at once to the stranger. He moved the hat aside and he looked at his face. And this was something that was not followed by the blacksmiths. Blacksmiths, they didn't pay any attention to this man. They just nodded, okay, you can sleep over here, and afterwards they started doing their work. They were not interested in this man. But the iron master did not follow the example of the blacksmiths. He wanted to know who that man was, so he went near to him and he tore off, he moved his slouch hat. Slouch means the bending hat, aside, and he wanted to look into his face. And at once this man exclaimed, the iron master exclaimed, but of course it is you, Nils Olof. How you do look. So from here there is a turn in the story. This iron master uh, misunderstands the peddler to be his old friend Nils Olof, who was with him in a regiment. This iron master was earlier in working in the army. He was in a regiment, and there he had a friend, some officer, Nils Olof. So he mistook the peddler to be Nils Olof. So when he looked at his face, he said, of course, you are my friend, Nils Olof. But see how you look. The man with the rat traps had never before seen the iron master at Ramjo and did not even know what his name was. But it occurred to him that if the fine gentleman thought he was an old acquaintance, he might perhaps throw him a couple of kroner. Therefore, he did not want to undeceive him all at once. Yes, God knows things have gone downhill with me, he said. You should not have resigned from the regiment, said the iron master. That was the mistake. If only I had still been in the service at the time, it never would have happened. Well, now, of course, you will come home with me. To go along up to the manor house and be received by the owner like an old regimental comrade, that, however, did not please the tramp. So this man, the peddler, he was quite, you can say, sharp. So he had never seen this iron master earlier in his life. He was evidently not a friend of this iron master. He was not Nils Olof. But he thought that if this gentleman assumed him to be his old acquaintance, then it is good only. He can give me some money uh, as a kind of help. So he did not want to tell him the truth. So he said, yes, God knows things have gone downhill with me. Things have gone downhill with me means there was a steep downfall in the path of my progress. So earlier I was an officer and I have fallen down this much. I have fallen down to the extent of becoming a peddler these days. So the iron master said, yeah, you made a mistake by resigning from the regiment. That was the mistake, and because of that mistake, today you have reached to this level. And he further added that had I been in service at that time, I would never have allowed you to do so. But now you are coming with me to the manor house, to my bungalow, and there we would decide what to do with you next. I would surely help you out of this situation. But the peddler, the tramp, he was not happy with this suggestion, going to the manor house and being received by this iron master as some old regimental comrade friend. So that was his idea was extracting some money from him. But this was not his idea at all, to go to the manor house. He would be caught easily. He had stolen 30 kroners from the crofter's cottage, so he was scared. He did not want to run the risk. So he said, no, I couldn't think of it, he said, looking quite alarmed. So he was shocked to hear that, and he said, no, I cannot do that. I'm not coming with you. He thought of the 30 kroner. To go up to the manor house would be like throwing himself voluntarily into the lion's den. He only wanted a chance to sleep here in the forge and then sneak away as inconspicuously as possible. So he thought of the 30 kroner notes, he thought of the theft he had done at the cottage, and he was scared to enter into the manor house. It was like entering into a lion's den. So he just wanted to stay in that forge for the night near the furnace to warm himself and to silently move away from that place. Inconspicuously means without being noticed. The way he came, in the same way, without being noticed, he wanted to just move out of that place. The iron master assumed that he felt embarrassed because of his miserable clothing. Please don't think that I have such a fine home that you cannot show yourself there, he said. Elizabeth is dead, as you may already have heard. My boys are abroad, and there is no one at home except my old daughter and myself. We were just saying that it was too bad we didn't have any company for Christmas. Now come along with me and help us make the Christmas food disappear a little faster. So the iron master was not able to understand why his old friend was refusing to come with him. He did not know that he was not his old friend. And he felt that he was not coming because of his miserable clothing. He was feeling embarrassed to come along with him. So he said, to comfort his old friend, that I don't live in a very huge house, that you cannot come there, and my wife Elizabeth is already dead. My sons, they don't stay with me, they have gone abroad. I'm alone at home, and it's only my daughter that stays with me. So you can come there, no need to feel embarrassed. And he further added that he and his daughter were feeling quite lonely at the Christmas, and they were just thinking that there should have been somebody with them to celebrate Christmas. And now that you have come, that we would be very happy to receive you. Now you please come with me to the manor house and help us finish the Christmas food. Help us make the Christmas food disappear fast. So just come. So he tried to make his old friend comfortable here. But the stranger said no and again no, and the iron master saw that he must give in. But the peddler was continuously saying no. So the iron master saw that he has to surrender. It looks as though Captain von Stahl preferred to stay with you tonight, Sternstorm, he said to the master blacksmith, and turned on his heel. But he laughed to himself as he went away, and the blacksmith, who knew him, understood very well that he had not said his last word. So see here, Captain von Stahl. This is the real name of Nils Olof. Nils Olof, you can say, is the nickname of his old regimental friend, and Captain von Stahl is the real name. And what is the name of master blacksmith? His name is Sternstorm. So the iron master, while leaving the forge, he said this to the master blacksmith, that it seems that Captain von Stahl, my friend, he wants to stay with you and not come along with me. So saying that, he moved out of the forge. But while moving out, he was laughing. And the blacksmith Sternstorm understood that the iron master was not done yet. He would make some more efforts to take his friend to his manor house, that this was not the end of it. He would plan something and would reappear or would send somebody. So, that much the blacksmith knew about the iron master. So you are able to understand that the iron master had misunderstood the peddler to be his old friend Captain Von Stahl or Nils Olof, and he wanted him to come. He wanted Captain Von Stahl to come along with him to the manor house, but Captain Von Stahl, who in reality was the peddler, kept on refusing to come along. He was refusing because he had 30 kroners with him that he had stolen from the cottage of the crofter, and he was scared of being caught at the manor house of the what's his name, iron master. Yeah. It was not more than half an hour before they heard the sound of carriage wheels outside the forge, and a new guest came in, but this time it was not the iron master. He had sent his daughter, apparently hoping that she would have better powers of persuasion than he himself. So the iron master sent his daughter, and within half an hour, the daughter reached there with the carriage. And the iron master had sent his daughter because the daughter had better powers of persuasion. The iron master felt that my daughter would be able to persuade him better than he himself could do. So the daughter had come now in a carriage. She entered, followed by a valet carrying on his arm a big fur coat. She was not at all pretty, but seemed modest and quite shy. In the forge, everything was just as it had been earlier in the evening. The master blacksmith and his apprentice still sat on their bench, and iron and charcoal still glowed in the furnace. The stranger had stretched himself out on the floor and lay with a piece of pig iron under his head and his hat pulled down over his eyes. As soon as the young girl caught sight of him, she went up and lifted his hat. The man was evidently used to sleeping with one eye open. He jumped up abruptly and seemed to be quite frightened. So, the daughter had come along with the servant, a valet. And the valet, the servant, he was carrying a big fur coat for the iron master's friend. This daughter of the iron master, he was not at all pretty. She wasn't beautiful, but she seemed modest, humble, and a bit shy. In the forge, everything was going on as it had been earlier. The master blacksmith and his apprentice, they were still waiting for the iron to be brought to that temperature at which they can beat it into an iron sheet. And so they were just sitting on their bench. Iron and charcoal glowed in the furnace, and the stranger was again sleeping, and he had stretched himself out on the floor, and he was sleeping with the hat on his face, and he used to sleep with one eye open. So this girl also went straight to him and lifted his hat, and when she lifted his hat, he at once jumped up abruptly, and he looked bit frightened, quite frightened. So why he used to sleep with one eye open? He used to sleep on the pavement. Pavement is not a very safe place to sleep. So he in the habit of sleeping with one eye open means he had a very light sleep with a little sound or disturbance here and there. He used to wake up. So he jumped up abruptly when the daughter lifted the hat from his face. So the daughter said, "My name is Edla Wilmenson. My father came home and said that you wanted to sleep here in the forge tonight, and then I asked permission to come and bring you home to us. I am so sorry, Captain, that you are having such a hard time." She looked at him compassionately with her heavy eyes, and then she noticed that the man was afraid. Either he has stolen something or else he has escaped from jail, she thought, and added quickly, "You may be sure, Captain, that you'll be allowed to leave us just as freely as you came. Only please stay with us over Christmas Eve." So the ironmaster's daughter, she introduced herself. She said that her name was Edla Wilmenson, and her father told her that you wanted to sleep here at the forge, and she also expressed her grief for the sad plight of the captain, that from the rank of a captain he had fallen to this level that he had to work as a peddler these days. So she felt sorry for that. And she looked at him with compassion in her eyes. And she noticed that the man was afraid. And this thought comes to her mind that either he had stolen something or else he had escaped from jail. See how correct the daughter is in her observation. So, in the exam, this comes as a long question. Uh, what differences do you find in the character of the iron master and in the character of the daughter? So, this is first one, observation, keen observation. The daughter is good at it and the iron master is worst at it. So she at once understood that either he had stolen something from somewhere or he had escaped from jail, seeing him afraid. And very compassionately, she said that, in a very friendly manner, she said that, uh, please come with me and be sure that whenever you feel like leaving us, you would not be forced to stay with us. You could freely go as and when you wish, but please stay with us over Christmas Eve. And she said this in such a friendly manner that the rat trap peddler must have felt confidence in her. It would never have occurred to me that you would bother with me yourself, miss, he said. I will come at once. He accepted the fur coat which the valet handed him with a deep bow, threw it over his rags, and followed the young lady out to the carriage without granting the astonished blacksmiths so much as a glance. But while he was riding up to the manor house, he had evil forebodings. So the peddler felt confidence in her. She talked in a very friendly and compassionate manner. She also promised him that he would not be forced to stay there against his will. So, all in all, he was impressed and he finally said that you bothered yourself and you came all along to just take me to the manor house. So, I am ready to come. So, he accepted to come with her to the manor house. He took the fur coat and he threw it over his rags. He wore that fur coat over his rags, and without paying any attention to the blacksmith, without saying any bye or anything to them, he just left the forge, and sitting in the carriage he had evil forebodings. Evil forebodings means he had the premonition that something wrong would happen over there. Why the devil did I take that fellow's money? He thought, now I'm sitting in the trap and will never get out of it. So he's cursing himself that why the hell did I make that mistake? Why I stole that man's money? Now I am in a rat trap and I'll not be able to come out of it ever. So now he is repentant over here. The next day was Christmas Eve, and when the iron master came into the dining room for breakfast, he probably thought with satisfaction of his old regimental comrade whom he had run across so unexpectedly. First of all, we must see to it that he gets a little flesh on his bones, he said to his daughter, who was busy at the table. And then we must see that he gets something else to do than to run around the country selling rat traps. It is queer that things have gone downhill with him as badly as that, said the daughter. Last night I did not think there was anything about him to show that he had once been an educated man. "You must have patience, my little girl," said the father. "As soon as he gets clean and dressed up, you will see something different. Last night he was naturally embarrassed. The tramp manners will fall away from him with the tramp clothes." So next day morning, the father and the daughter, they were discussing what to do next for the peddler, and they were discussing this at the breakfast table. So the iron master was saying that first we should see that he gets some flesh on his bones. That is, he was very thin, and we should give him good nutritious food, that he starts filling up. He starts looking a bit normal. And after good nutrition, the next thing would be to see what job he can do other than selling rat traps around. And the daughter said that it is strange that he had fallen down so bad, that he had uh, suffered so many setbacks in his life, that from the status of a captain he had fallen to the level of a peddler. And she further added that last night I did not see anything in him that could make me feel that he was once an educated person. So, this observation is also correct. The peddler was never an educated person. So, she rightly felt that there was nothing that could prove that he was once an educated man. But the iron master, he just believes in himself, and he says, no, no, last night he was just feeling embarrassed because of his poor condition. But today, you see, after his clothes are changed, he will definitely turn out to be some different person, and you would definitely see good manners, good mannerism in him. He is definitely an educated person. Just as he said this, the door opened and the stranger entered. Yes, now he was truly clean and well dressed. The valet had bathed him, cut his hair, and shaved him. Moreover, he was dressed in a good looking suit of clothes which belonged to the iron master. He wore a white shirt and a starched collar and whole shoes. But although his guest was now so well groomed, the iron master did not seem pleased. He looked at him with puckered brow, and it was easy to understand that when he had seen the strange fellow in the uncertain reflection from the furnace, he might have made a mistake, but that now, when he stood there in broad daylight, it was impossible to mistake him for an old acquaintance. "What does this mean?" he thundered. The stranger made no attempt to dissimulate. He saw at once that the splendor had come to an end. "It is not my fault, sir," he said. "I never pretended to be anything but a poor trader, and I pleaded and begged to be allowed to stay in the forge. But no harm has been done. At worst, I can put on my rags again and go away." So, just at that point of time, when the father and the daughter were discussing about the fate of the peddler, what their plans were for him, at that point of time, the peddler arrived into that room. And he was now a well groomed, uh, a well shaven person. His hair was cut, he was given a bath, and he was given a good dress to wear. And everything was good about him, but the iron master did not look happy at all. So the last night in the reflection of furnace, he was in that light that was coming from the furnace. He made a mistake in recognizing the peddler, but now in the broad daylight, there was no chance for him to make that mistake again. He it was impossible to mistake him for an old acquaintance. So he understood that this particular person was not his old friend Nils Olaf or Captain Von Stahl. So he thundered, "What does this mean?" And the peddler understood that the good time is gone, and he made no attempt to uh, to dissimulate him, to cheat him that no, I'm the same person. So he said, the stranger said, "It is not my fault, sir. All the time I was saying that let me stay in the forge, let me stay in the fort, but now also no harm has been caused. I will again put on my old clothes and I would leave this place." "Well," said the iron master, hesitating a little, "that was it was not quite honest either, you must admit that, and I should not be surprised if the sheriff would like to have something to say in the matter." The tramp took a step forward and struck the table with his fist. "Now I am going to tell you, Mr. Ironmaster, how things are," he said. "This whole world is nothing but a big rat trap. All the good things that are offered to you are nothing but cheese rinds and bits of pork, set out to drag a poor fellow into trouble, and if the sheriff comes now and locks me up for this, then you, Mr. Ironmaster, must remember that a day may come when you yourself may want to get a big piece of pork, and then you will get caught in the trap." The Ironmaster began to laugh. So the iron master said, "No, that was not very honest on your part. Because you remember he said, yes, things have gone downhill with me and I have reached to this level." So the iron master said, "No, you were not very honest, and now I'm going to call the police. Let me see what the police has to say in this matter." Sheriff here means a policeman. So that made the peddler also a bit angry, and he went a step forward and he struck the table with his fist. And he said that, "Look, Mr. Iron Master, this whole world is like a rat trap." He started giving his philosophy of life, that this whole world is a rat trap. And if today I am in this situation because I got dragged to the situation, then you also remember that tomorrow the same kind of situation can befall on you also, and you will also be caught in a rat trap. You remember that. So, hearing this comparison between life and rat trap, the Iron Master was a bit impressed. He started laughing and he said, "That was not so badly said, my good fellow. Perhaps we should let the sheriff alone on Christmas Eve. But now get out of here as fast as you can." So, listening to his philosophy, the Iron Master decided to allow him to leave without calling the police, and he said, "Just leave the place at once." But just as the man was opening the door, the daughter said, "I think he ought to stay with us today. I don't want him to go." And with that, she went and closed the door. "What in the world are you doing?" said the father. The daughter stood there quite embarrassed and hardly knew what to answer. That morning she had felt so happy when she thought how homelike and Christmassy she was going to make things for the poor hungry wretch. She could not get away from the idea all at once, and that was why she had interceded for the vagabond. "I am thinking of the stranger here," said the young girl. "He walks and walks the whole year long, and there is probably not a single place in the whole country where he is welcome and can feel at home. Wherever he turns, he is chased away. Always he is afraid of being arrested and cross examined. I should like to have him enjoy a day of peace with us here, just one in the whole year." The iron master mumbled something in his beard. He could not bring himself to oppose her. "It was all a mistake, of course," she continued, "but anyway, I don't think we ought to chase away a human being whom we have asked to come here and to whom we have promised Christmas cheer." "You do preach worse than a parson," said the iron master. "I only hope you won't have to regret this." The young girl took the stranger by the hand and led him up to the table. "Now sit down and eat," she said, for she could see that her father had given in. So, just at the moment when the man was opening the door and was going out, the daughter stopped him And she said, I think he should stay here with us today. I don't want him to go. So the father, he just thundered again. What in the world are you saying? Why should he stay with us? So the daughter did not know what to say. Actually, the thing was, in the morning, she had made so many plans for the poor peddler that she would do this and she would prepare this and she would decorate the house in this way and that way. She had made several plans in her mind for this poor peddler, and at once she was not able to come out of it. So she interfered in the father's decision and she stopped him. And then she said to the father that this person, he is all alone in this world. The whole year he wanders from one place to the other and he is never welcomed anywhere. He is always chased away and he always lives under the fear of being arrested or cross examined by the police. So I want that this person should at least get one day, one peaceful day in a year at least. Please let him stay here. And then she further said that we have promised him a Christmas cheer. We promised him that he could spend the day with us and could celebrate Christmas with us. So we should fulfill our promise. So this is also you can say a short answer type question. Why Edla did not allow father to send the peddler away? So one, she had made several plans in her mind and she was not able to come out of this at once, so she interceded. Then she wanted the peddler to enjoy one peaceful day uh, at least in a year. Then she wanted to fulfill the promise that they had made to this poor peddler. So the father said that you preach worse than a parson. Parson is the father of a church. So these fathers, they preach in the church, and the iron master said to the daughter that you preach worse than a parson, that you preach in much more compelling manner than a parson. And he just said that I only hope you don't have to regret later on. So I am with you, but you should not be repentant upon your decision later on. So the daughter understood that the father had agreed, and so she took the iron master by his hand and made him sit on at the dining table, and she started serving him food. The man with the rat trap said not a word. He only sat down and helped himself to the food. Time after time, he looked at the young girl who had interceded for him. Why had she done it? What could the crazy idea be? So the peddler, he was amazed that why this daughter had spoken on his behalf. Why had she stopped him from going out of the manor house? What could the crazy idea be? Nobody had ever been so good to him in his entire life, and this girl was behaving totally different from the rest of the world. So he was completely shaken. After that, Christmas Eve at Ramjo passed just as it always had. The stranger did not cause any trouble because he had nothing but sleep. He did nothing but sleep. The whole forenoon he lay on the sofa in one of the guest rooms and slept at one stretch. At noon, they woke him up so that he could have his share of the good Christmas fare, but after that he slept again. It seemed as though for many years he had not been able to sleep as quietly and safely as here at Ramjo. In the evening, when the Christmas tree was lighted, they woke him up again, and he stood for a while in the drawing room, blinking as though the candlelight hurt him. But after that, he disappeared again. 2 hours later, he was aroused once more. He then had to go down into the dining room and eat the Christmas fish and porridge. So, after that, the rest of the day went on as normal. Nothing much happened because the stranger did nothing but sleep. He was sleeping throughout the day. The whole forenoon he slept. Then he in one of the guest rooms, on one of the sofas, and then they woke him up, and he had his lunch. After that he slept again. After 2 hours he was woken up, and again he slept. And in the evening, when the Christmas tree was lighted, they woke him up again, and he stood for. So there also, in the evening also, he was quite sleepy, blinking as though the candlelight hurt him. But after that, after the evening also, he disappeared, and he slept again. 2 hours later, he was aroused once more, and then he had to go down into the dining room and have dinner with everyone. As soon as they got up from the table, he went around to each one present and said thank you and good night. But when he came to the young girl, she gave him to understand that it was her father's intention that the suit which he wore was to be a Christmas present. He did not have to return it. And if he wanted to spend next Christmas Eve in a place where he could rest in peace and be sure that no evil would befall him, he would be welcomed back again. So after the dinner, he went to each and every one over there and personally said thank you and good night to each one of them. But when he came to the daughter, he did not know what to say to her, in how to thank her, what words he should use to thank her. And the daughter told him that the suit that he was wearing, he did not need to return it. That was his this Christmas present, and he could keep it. And further, if next year also he wanted to spend Christmas with them, he was most welcome. So the peddler really had no words with which to thank her. He just kept on looking at her with in boundless amazement. The man with the rat traps did not answer anything to this. He only stared at the young girl in boundless amazement. So the peddler, he had no words, he had no answer. He just stood there looking at the girl in amazement. So that day was over. The next morning now. The next morning, the iron master and his daughter got up in good season to go to the early Christmas service. Their guest was still asleep and they did not disturb him. When at about 10 o'clock they drove back from the church, the young girl sat and hung her head even more dejectedly than usual. At church, she had learned that one of the old crofters of the ironworks had been robbed by a man who went around selling rat traps. Yes, that was a fine fellow you let into the house, said her father. I only wonder how many silver spoons are left in the cupboard by this time. The wagon had hardly stopped at the front steps when the iron master asked the valet whether the stranger was still there. He added that he had heard at church that the man was a thief. The valet answered that the fellow had gone and that he had not taken anything with him at all. On the contrary, he had left behind a little package which Miss Wilmenson was to be kind enough to accept as a Christmas present. So the next morning, the father and the daughter, they went to the church for the morning service, and as the peddler was sleeping, they did not feel like disturbing him. They both went, and there at the church they heard about the theft at the crofter's cottage, and they learnt that a person who moves around selling rat traps was the thief. So they understood that the one whom they have given shelter at home was a thief. So they returned home hurriedly, and the daughter Edla will mention, she looked very downcast, she looked very disappointed, and the father was quite angry, and he was saying that that was a fine fellow you allowed to stay in the house, and now I wonder if any silver spoons are left in the cupboard or not. And the moment the carriage reached to the front steps, from there only the father started questioning the servant whether that man was there or not, whether he had robbed the house or not. So the servant replied that he had left the place, but he had not stolen anything, rather he had left a gift for Edla Wilmanson. The young girl opened the package, which was so badly done up that the contents came into view at once. She gave a little cry of joy. She found a small rat trap, and in it lay 3 wrinkled 10 kroner notes, but that was not all. In the rat trap lay also a letter written in large jagged characters. Honored and noble Miss, since you have been so nice to me all day long, as if I was a captain, I want to be nice to you in return, as if I was a real captain, for I do not want you to be embarrassed at this Christmas season by a thief. But you can give back the money to the old man on the roadside who has the money pouch hanging on the window frame as a bait for poor wanderers. The rat trap is a Christmas present from a rat who would have been caught in this world's rat trap if he had not been raised to captain, because in that way he got power to clear himself. Written with friendship and high regard, Captain von Stale. So the young girl opened that gift, and it was so badly done up, that it was so badly packed that the contents were visible without opening it. And she finally opened the cover, and she found a small rat trap there, and inside that there were this stolen money. The 3 wrinkled 10 kroner notes were also lying inside that rat trap. And the girl gave a little cry of joy. The girl was finally happy to see this, that the man had not disappointed her finally. But that was not all. There was also a letter. So what comprised, what were the contents of that gift? 1 rat trap, 2 10 kroner, 3 10 kroner bills, and then 1 letter. Now let's read what is given in the letter. So he wrote there that as you were very kind to me, you treated me as if I was a real captain. So I also want to be nice to you. I don't want you to be embarrassed. I don't want you to feel embarrassed that you gave shelter to a thief. So I am returning this money. And you please return this money to that crofter and tell him not to hang it by the window frame as a bait for poor people like me. And he further added that this rat trap is a Christmas present from a rat. He calls himself a rat. And he says that I would have been caught in the world's rat trap had you not raised me to the level of a captain. You raised me to captain, and you gave me the power to realize my mistake and to clear myself. So, thank you very much. So, from the ending, the important question is, why did the peddler sign himself as Captain von Stahl? See, down here, he has written his name as Captain von Stahl. So, why has he done that? Because after being raised to the level of a captain, he was able to realize his mistake, and he was able to clear himself. He was able to do the right thing, do the correct thing. So he signed himself as Captain von Stahl. So he was very thankful to the lady that she treated him so well, as if he was a real captain, and gave him the strength to see through his mistake and to correct it. So he signed himself as Captain von Stahl. So this is the chapter, children. I hope you have understood. And through this chapter, the writer wants to tell us, through the character of the peddler, that though in the beginning he was wrong, but after receiving the affection, the kindness of Edla Wilmanson, he understands his mistake and he corrects himself. So this is the theme of the chapter, that our circumstances make us bad, and when we face good circumstances, then we again become good. So this is the chapter, children. I hope you have understood it. Thank you.